There's one more we want to make. One more I want to do, Canadian horror film. It's Moose Jaws. It's Jaws, but with a moose instead of a shark. So hopefully we get to do.
One of the most famous directors has been trying to make one of the strangest films in history for over a decade now. A horror film called Moose Jaws. So let's talk about it. I don't know about you, but to me, Kevin Smith has a special place in my heart. The creator of quite a few cult classic films and is just generally one of those fan favorite filmmakers. Even though he's never really had giant mainstream success, he has leagues of dedicated fans who love his work and love him. It wasn't just his good movies that kept people coming back. His breakout film Clerks, which won the Filmmakers Award at Sundance that year, is really the textbook example that you don't need a ton of money to make a great film. Watching Kevin Smith's work was inspiring, and his dedication to propping up independent filmmaking was awesome. They even put him in Call of Duty, and I mean, like, where do you go from the top, you know? Kevin Smith's movies were always clever and funny, his dialogue was just unlike anything else on the indie scene, and another cool thing about Kevin Smith was that all of his films always take place in the same universe. Kevin Smith was doing cinematic universes 15 years before Marvel made them cool.
What about Caitlin?
Shock trauma. She's gonna need years of therapy after this. My question is, how did she come to have sex with a dead man?
She thought it was me.
What kind of convenience store do you run here?
Oh no, here's the big test. Quick stop.
My best friend fucked a dead guy in the bathroom.
You know that girl?
I did, before she was committed.
Kevin Smith repeated his Clerks success with 3 more great movies and then a lot of hit or miss nonsense stuff. But even though I'm not a fan of all of his movies, I always show up to see them regardless, good work or bad work. And I can't think of another director I'd say that about. I have to admit, I do respect how he's always dedicated to making whatever it is he wants to make. Even when he makes garbage, and let's be frank, he makes a lot of that, it's always at the least entertaining. And his True North trilogy might be the best example of that could exist. One of Kevin Smith's newer creative endeavors is his True North trilogy of movies. He came up with the idea of it on a podcast and decided to genuinely make it.
It was an open source experiment, like where I was like, let me show the audience how a movie gets made. Because they heard me have the idea on a podcast. So I was like, ooh, they were there for the idea stage. Now let's take them all the way through execution, perhaps elevation, and make this fucking thing. So, you know, I hashtagged on Twitter. It's like, if you think this is a good idea, hashtag walrus yes. If you think it's a terrible idea, walrus no. And I won't pursue it. And the next day, a sea of walrus yes.
3 films taking place in Canada that vaguely center around the same cast of characters. Mainly through Guy something French, a French-Canadian detective played by Johnny Depp.
But then he texted me like a month later and he goes, oh my God, I'm almost done with the script and I love Guy Lapointe so much. I can't wait to do this. I feel so honored you asked me. And shit, like, oh my God, like the world's greatest actor is fucking talking about possibly being in the world's worst movie that I'm gonna direct.
2 Canadian clerks played by Harley Smith and Lily Rose Depp, some cameo characters as well as the other characters that sometimes show up in Kevin Smith movies. The stories of the True North trilogy were strange and frankly a bit of a gamble for producers, but Kevin Smith has a phenomenal track record of making money back. Kevin Smith's movies, even if they fail at the box office, always find a way to make their money back one way or another. It's one hell of a skill and it has earned Kevin Smith a lot of trust from producers. And that's why they're so happy to give him decent sized budgets and all the creative freedom in the world. The first, Tusk, a horror film about a mad scientist trying to surgically turn a kidnapped man into a walrus. The second, Yoga Hosers, a film that's a giant pile of shit. And the third, as Kevin Smith describes himself,
it's Moose Jaws. It's Jaws, but with a moose instead of a shark.
Moose Jaws was to star Harley from Epic Mealtime, who up until then had only made cameos in the other 2 movies. It took place in Moose Jaw, Canada, which I had to Google and turns out is a real place, so hey. And what else? It involves a cast of characters getting killed off one by one by a giant crazed moose. And he doesn't mean Moose Jaws like it's a similar movie. he means this movie takes beat for beat from Jaws.
Introductory scene of Jay and Silent Bob as the Moose Hunters, and they are same scene as in Jaws. If you're unfamiliar with the movie Jaws, shark terrorizing a fucking coastal town, beach town. They want to close the beaches down and stuff, but the local business people are like, this is a summer town, we need summer dollars.
Because I guess we don't have enough Jaws copycats. Moose Jaws was the grand finale of Kevin Smith's tribute to B-style horror films. And I know a lot of people just walked away from Tusk and Yoga Hosers just calling them garbage, and they were. But there was a lot of passion for indie films underneath that you don't see in most movies. Kevin Smith says he made Yoga Hosers as an homage to Full Moon Studios films. Well, I had to Google what they were. Turns out it's a studio that makes a bunch of Gremlin knockoffs, which kinda explains the movie. And Moose Jaws, at least at first glance, does feel like an homage to campy slasher films, the Friday the 13ths of the world. And just like other Kevin Smith films that often allude to his other movies, Kevin Smith was foreshadowing Moose Jaws throughout his other two films. Well, Yoga Hosers came out, and despite a budget of $5 million, it made almost none of that back. Tusk's return profits were already bad, but Yoga Hosers? A24 might as well have just lit that money on fire. Nobody was impressed critically by these films either. Tusk had mixed reactions from critics and Kevin Smith fans, but nobody enjoyed Yoga Hosers. Although it's never been confirmed by anyone, the sudden silence probably came from producers pulling funding on Moose Jaws. Kevin Smith seemed to quickly change focus too. His next two films were much safer bets to make money back. Kevin Smith was suddenly playing it safe for a while, and while most of his films reference each other, he was in no hurry to remind anyone of the True North trilogy. Moose Jaws sounds about as good as the other two, which is not saying much. And also a lot of time has passed, and since then, Elizabeth Banks has made a movie that was basically Moose Jaws. I really don't think it would be anything special, but I do respect Kevin Smith's dedication to getting this film made. Kevin Smith just sees filmmaking different than everybody else. Kevin Smith isn't making these movies to impress anyone but him. And you could do a lot worse than that. He's out to accomplish his own goal, whatever the hell it is. Kevin Smith is unapologetically himself, and that's what his fans love him for. In an era where producers are more scared than ever to take risks, you do have to respect Kevin Smith's dedication to trying new stuff, even if it doesn't always work out. And hey, Moose Jaws might actually not be dead forever.
We had this conversation recently with Lionsgate, which is the conversation that every filmmaker dreams about when you're working with somebody with a lot of money. The conversation where they go, so, what are you doing next? That's footsie. That's them being like, we would like to do this again. And after the Clerks 3 process went so well, they played footsie with us and they were like, what would you like to do next? A very good sign means that they're willing to fucking finance shit.
Late 2022, Lionsgate announced it planned to finance Moose Jaws itself and bring the project back to life.
We got a phone call from the people at fucking Lionsgate and they were like, we sold so many copies of Jay and Silent Bob Reboot on DVD and Blu-ray that if you have any more of this Jay and Silent Bob bullshit and you can make it for under $8 million, we'll totally do it. And I was like, I'm filled with nothing but Jay and Silent Bob bullshit. And so they were like, well, like what? And I was like, well, I got this movie, Clerks 3, that they're in. They're like, okay, what else? And I was like, I got this movie called Moose Jaws.
Yeah.
And they were like, what's Moose Jaws? And I was like, Moose Jaws is Jaws, but with a moose instead of a shark. And they're like, what's the budget on that? I was like, about $3 million. They're like, we'll make 4 of them.
I'm not sure if I'll like it, but if Moose Jaws does come out, I'll definitely go see it.